Keep the change. I won't be needing it wherever I'm going. The grocery store at 9th and Hamilton was the kind of place where nothing ever happened. Fluorescent lights humming, shopping carts rattling, the same faces every week. Tuesday evening, the slowest shift when most people were home eating dinner. A man stood at register for. Dark suit too expensive for this neighborhood. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, the kind that whispered money without shouting it. He placed a single bottle of water on the counter. Nothing else. Just water. He reached for his wallet. His hand came up empty. He checked his jacket. His other pocket. His face remained stone cold, but his eyes flickered with something rare for a man like him. Vulnerability. I apologize, he said quietly. My wallet. It seems I've misplaced it. The manager appeared from nowhere. His face already twisted with irritation. Sir, if you can't pay, you need to leave. We're not running a charity here. A woman in line scoffed. Great. Just great. Some of us actually have money to spend. Everyone stared. Everyone judged. The man in the expensive suit, brought low by a $1.79 bottle of water. And then Rachel, the pregnant cashier with swollen ankles and 3 hours left on her shift, did something that would cost her everything. She reached into her apron pocket, pulled out a crumpled $20 bill. Her last $20. The money meant for her electric bill, the one that was already 2 weeks overdue. She slid it across the counter. I've got it, she said softly. The man's eyes locked onto hers. Dark. Dangerous. But something in them shifted. And what he did next made the entire store fall silent. My name is William Ashford. I run the East Side. And this store? I just decided I own it now. Now, before I tell you what happened when William walked back through those doors 12 hours later, check that subscribe button. If you love stories where kindness is rewarded and cruelty gets exactly what it deserves, hit it right now and turn on notifications, because the justice served in this story is the kind that leaves scars. Let me take you back to who William Ashford really was. At 47 years old, William was what people whispered about but never said aloud. A name you didn't mention in certain neighborhoods unless you wanted trouble. He controlled everything from shipping docks to construction contracts, from backroom deals to the politicians who smiled for cameras while taking his envelopes. But money doesn't make you visible. Power does. And William had spent 20 years learning that the most dangerous men are the ones you don't see coming. No gold chains. No entourage. No flashy cars drawing attention. He wore tailored suits that could have been bought anywhere. He drove himself. He carried his own water bottle into corner stores. A lion doesn't announce itself, his mentor Carlo used to say. Back when William was just a hungry kid running numbers in Brooklyn. It moves quietly. And when it strikes, the prey never sees it coming. William had come from nothing. The son of a dock worker who died with $137 in his bank account and a legacy of broken promises. His mother, Maria, had raised him alone in a 2-room apartment where the heat never worked and the landlord never answered. She taught him one thing that stuck. Strength without honor is just violence, William. But honor without strength? That's just a pretty word that gets you killed. William Ashford's Tuesday had started the way most of his Tuesdays started. With blood on someone else's hands. He'd been sitting in the back of his armored Mercedes, reviewing construction contracts for the Riverside development, when Dante called. Dante never called unless something was wrong. We found Carmine's body in the warehouse on Pier 9. 3 bullets. They left him there for us to find. William's jaw tightened. Carmine had been with him for 12 years. Loyal. Careful. The kind of man who checked every corner twice and never took the easy route home. If they'd gotten to Carmine, they'd gotten close. Too close. The Volkov brothers? William asked, already knowing the answer. Their signature. Clean shots, no witnesses, message received. The Russian syndicate had been pushing into his territory for 6 months, testing boundaries, buying off his contacts, making moves that were just bold enough to be disrespectful. Carmine's death wasn't about money or territory. It was about proving William could be touched. They were wrong. By noon, William had ordered every asset mobilized. His legitimate businesses locked down. His crew armed and positioned. His network of informants burning through favors to find where the Volkov brothers were hiding. The war he'd been avoiding was now inevitable. And wars were expensive in ways that had nothing to do with money. At 4 p.m., his driver Marco pulled up to the restaurant on Lafayette, where William had a standing Tuesday dinner reservation. Same table, same meal, same routine for 8 years. Creatures of habit die predictable deaths. But William had learned that sometimes the most dangerous thing you could do was exactly what everyone expected. Kept them watching the wrong moves. He was halfway through his scotch when Marco's voice crackled through the earpiece. "Boss, we've got movement. 2 vehicles half a mile back. Been tailing us since we left downtown." William set down his glass slowly. The restaurant hummed with normal conversation. Oblivious wealthy people eating overpriced pasta and discussing stock portfolios. None of them knew they were sitting 30 feet from a man with a target on his back. "How many?" William asked quietly. "At least 6. Maybe more. They're boxing us in." William's mind calculated angles, exits, collateral damage. The restaurant had too many civilians. The street outside was too exposed. If the Volkovs wanted him dead badly enough to make a move in public, they weren't planning on leaving witnesses. "Drive past the front entrance," William said, standing and dropping $300 bills on the table. "I'm going out of the kitchen." He moved through the dining room like smoke, nodding at the owner who knew better than to ask questions. Through the kitchen, past startled cooks. Out the back delivery door into an alley that reeked of garbage and grease. Behind him, he heard the squeal of tires. Shouting. A sound that might have been gunfire or might have been a car backfiring, but William didn't wait to find out which. He ran 3 blocks through side streets, discarding his jacket in a dumpster, his phone smashed against a brick wall, his wallet tossed into a storm drain because anything with his name on it was a liability. By the time he ducked into the corner grocery store on 9th and Hamilton, he was just another man in a white shirt, breathing hard, trying to disappear into the background of ordinary American life. He grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler, hands still shaking from adrenaline, and walked to register for. That's when he realized his wallet was gone. Rachel Turner woke up at 5:47 a.m. to the sound of her own stomach trying to turn itself inside out. She made it to the bathroom just in time, gripping the sides of the toilet while her body rejected the crackers she'd eaten before bed. Morning sickness was a lie. It was all-day sickness, all-night sickness, every moment of her existence sickness. For months pregnant, and she still couldn't keep anything down except ginger ale and spite. When the nausea finally passed, she sat on the cold tile floor and cried for 3 minutes. Not because of the vomiting. Not even because of the baby, though God knew she was terrified about that too. She cried because she was so tired she could feel it in her bones, and the day hadn't even started yet. The notice was still taped to her apartment door where she'd left it yesterday. Red letters. Final warning. She peeled it off and read it again, even though she'd memorized every word. Rent payment 19 days overdue. Pay in full by Friday or vacate premises. No exceptions. 19 days. Felt like 19 years. She'd been short on rent twice before, and Mrs. Chun, her landlord, had been patient. But patient had limits, and Rachel had found them. $650. That's what stood between her and the street. $650 she didn't have, wouldn't have, couldn't imagine having unless she won the lottery or found a briefcase full of cash in the subway. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister in Atlanta. "Did you ask Marcus for help?" Rachel deleted it without responding. Marcus. Her ex. The father of the child growing inside her. The man who'd said, "I'm not ready for this," and disappeared like smoke when she'd shown him the positive pregnancy test. She'd rather sleep in her car than ask Marcus for a single dollar. Except she didn't have a car anymore. She'd sold it last month to pay for the emergency root canal that her non-existent dental insurance didn't cover. By 7 a.m., she was dressed in her work uniform, the polo shirt stretched tight across her growing belly, and shoving her feet into sneakers that were supposed to have been replaced 6 months ago. Her ankles were already swelling. By the end of her 8-hour shift, they'd look like tree trunks, and the shooting pain up her calves would make every step feel like walking on broken glass. She counted the money in her wallet before leaving. $23. A 22 4/4 she'd been saving for laundry. That 20 was supposed to last until Friday when she got paid. Gas money, food money, emergency money. The only money between her and complete disaster. The bus ride to Valdez Grocery took 40 minutes. She watched the city wake up through scratched windows. People in business suits rushing to jobs that paid enough for car payments and health insurance. Mothers walking kids to schools that had art programs and field trips. Lives that felt like they existed on a different planet from hers. The store manager, Paul Hendricks, was already there when she arrived, his face set in its usual expression of permanent irritation. He didn't say good morning. He never did. "You're scheduled until 6, he said, not looking up from his clipboard. "No breaks except lunch. We're short-staffed and I need you on register for all day." 8 hours standing. 8 hours smiling at customers who treated her like furniture. 8 hours trying not to vomit in front of the produce section. "Yes, sir," Rachel said, "because that's what you said when you couldn't afford to lose your job." She walked to register for, logged into the system, and began her shift, praying that nothing would go wrong. By 9 p.m. that night, she'd learned that prayers don't always get answered the way you hope. William's hands were still trembling when he grabbed the water bottle from the cooler at the back of the store. Not from fear. He'd stopped being afraid of death somewhere around his 25th birthday when a rival crew had put 3 bullets in his car and missed his head by 2 inches. Fear was a luxury for people who had something to lose beyond their own lives. No, his hands shook from pure adrenaline, the chemical aftermath of running for his life through back alleys like a common criminal. William Ashford didn't run from anyone. He was the man people ran from. And yet here he was hiding in a grocery store that smelled like floor wax and rotting produce, clutching a bottle of water like it was salvation. He took a breath, steadied himself, walked toward the front of the store with the kind of measured calm that had gotten him through union negotiations and sit-downs with men who kept loaded guns on their kitchen tables. Register for. A young woman stood behind it, heavily pregnant, her face carrying the kind of exhaustion that came from more than just a long shift. She looked up at him with tired eyes and managed a small smile. "Just this?" she asked. "Just this," William confirmed, reaching for his back pocket out of pure muscle memory. His hand found nothing. The realization hit him like cold water. Wallet. Gone. Thrown into a storm drain 3 blocks away along with his phone, his credit cards, his driver's license, every piece of paper that could identify him as William Ashford. Every dollar he had. He checked his other pocket. His jacket pocket, except he'd ditched the jacket too. His shirt had no pockets. He was standing in a grocery store in a white dress shirt and tailored pants with literally nothing to his name except the Patek Philippe watch on his wrist that cost more than most people made in a year. "I apologize," William said quietly, the words foreign in his mouth. When was the last time he'd apologized to anyone? "My wallet. It seems I've misplaced it." The cashier's expression shifted from polite to concerned. "Oh, do you want me to hold the water while you go get it?" Before William could answer, a voice cut through the quiet store like a circular saw. "What's the holdup?" Paul Hendricks materialized from the back office, his face already twisted with irritation before he'd even assessed the situation. He was the type of small man who'd been given a tiny amount of authority and wielded it like a weapon against anyone he perceived as weaker. "Sir, if you can't pay, you need to leave." Hendricks crossed his arms. "We're not running a charity here." A woman in line behind William, holding a cart full of groceries, made a sound of disgust. "Are you serious right now? Some of us have places to be." Another customer chimed in. "This is ridiculous. It's a bottle of water. Just move." William felt the stares drilling into his back. Every eye in the store was on him now, watching the well-dressed man who couldn't afford a $1.79 bottle of water, judging him, dismissing him. In his world, men died for showing this kind of disrespect. In his world, Paul Hendricks would be a problem that got solved quietly and permanently. But in this world at this moment, William was just another broken customer wasting everyone's time. I said leave, Hendricks repeated, louder now, enjoying his authority. Or I'll call the police. The police? William almost laughed. If the police showed up and ran his face through their system, a dozen detectives would be very interested in why William Ashford was standing in a grocery store without identification, looking like he'd just run for his life. Because he had. William met the manager's eyes with the kind of stare that usually made men reconsider their life choices. Hendricks held his ground, stupid with power. And then the pregnant cashier did something that changed everything. Rachel had seen that look before. Not the expensive suit or the sharp jawline or the kind of presence that made people instinctively step back. She'd seen the look in his eyes. Desperation wearing a mask of dignity. The expression of someone who'd been knocked down and was trying very hard not to show it. She'd worn that look every day for the past 4 months. Her hand moved before her brain could stop it, reaching into her apron pocket and pulling out the crumpled $20 bill. Her last 20. The money that was supposed to buy gas to get to work tomorrow and maybe, if she was careful, a loaf of bread and some peanut butter to last until Friday. I've got it, she said softly, sliding the bill across the counter. The man's eyes locked onto hers. Dark eyes, dangerous eyes, but something in them shifted when he realized what she was doing. Not gratitude exactly. Something deeper. Something that looked almost like pain. You don't have to, he started. It's fine, Rachel said, though it wasn't fine, it was the opposite of fine. It was possibly the stupidest thing she'd done all week. Really? She rang up the water, made change from her 20, and handed him the bottle along with $18.21. Their fingers brushed for a second. His hands were cold. Thank you, he said, and the way he said it made it sound like a promise instead of a courtesy. Then Paul Hendricks exploded. What the hell do you think you're doing? His voice cracked across the store like a whip. Every head turned toward register 4. Did you just pay for a customer's items with your own money? Rachel's stomach dropped. He just needed. I don't care what he needs. Hendricks was in her face now, close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath. You violated store policy. Section 12, subsection 4. Employees are not permitted to provide financial assistance to customers under any circumstances. It was $79, Rachel said quietly. I was just trying to help. Trying to help? Hendricks laughed. A cruel sound that had no humor in it. You're trying to help some vagrant who can't even afford water? What's next, Rachel? You gonna start handing out your paycheck to every bum who walks through that door? The man in the white shirt went very still. The temperature in the store seemed to drop 10 degrees. Listen, Rachel tried again, her voice shaking now. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. I'll follow policy from now on, I promise. You're right, it won't happen again. Hendricks cut her off. Because you're fired. Effective immediately. The words hit her like a physical blow. What? No, please, I need this job. Should have thought about that before you decided to play charity worker on company time. Hendricks was enjoying this. She could see it in his eyes, the petty satisfaction of wielding power over someone who couldn't fight back. Hand over your apron. Now. I'm pregnant, Rachel heard herself say, hating how desperate she sounded. I need the insurance. I need. Not my problem. Hendricks snapped his fingers. Apron. Name tag. Get them off and get out of my store. Rachel's hands fumbled with the apron strings, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. Not here. Not in front of everyone. The other customers watched like it was a television show. Entertainment for their Tuesday evening. She pulled off the name tag, set it on the counter next to the apron. 6 months of work. 6 months of swollen ankles and fake smiles and yes sirs. Gone because she tried to be kind. And Rachel. Hendricks called after her as she turned to leave. Good luck finding another job. I'll make sure every store in this district knows exactly why you got terminated. Theft is a serious offense. I didn't steal anything. You used company time and company resources to conduct unauthorized financial transactions. That's theft in my book. He smiled. Now get out before I call the cops. Rachel walked toward the exit, her legs shaking, her mind screaming that this couldn't be happening. Behind her, she heard the man's voice, cold and quiet as winter. What's your name? What? Hendricks said. Your name. I want to remember it. William watched the pregnant woman walk out of the store with her head down and her shoulders shaking, and something inside him that had been cold for 20 years caught fire. Paul Hendricks was already turning away, dismissing her, dismissing him, dismissing the entire situation like it was just another Tuesday night power trip. The other customers were going back to their shopping, the drama over, ready to forget they'd watched a pregnant woman lose her job for the crime of basic human decency. William walked out of the store without another word. The evening air hit him like a slap. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that reminded him of burning buildings. He could see the woman half a block away, walking toward the bus stop, one hand pressed against her stomach like she was trying to hold herself together. He needed a phone. There was a payphone on the corner, one of the last relics of a dying era, covered in graffiti and smelling like urine. William picked up the receiver, fed it the quarters from his change, and dialed a number he'd memorized 15 years ago for exactly this kind of emergency. Dante answered on the first ring. Yeah. It's me. A pause. Boss? Jesus Christ, where are you? Marco said. I'm fine. Listen carefully. I'm at the corner of 9th and Hamilton. I need a car, a phone, and a clean jacket. 5 minutes. 5 minutes? Boss, we're still dealing with the Volkov situation. Everyone's mobilized. Then unmobilize them. William's voice dropped to the register that made seasoned killers check their exits. I want every available vehicle at this location in 5 minutes. I want it to look like the president just arrived. I want these streets flooded. Do you understand me? Yes, sir. And Dante? Bring the acquisition team. We're buying property tonight. William hung up and leaned against the brick wall of a closed laundromat, watching the grocery store through the gathering darkness. He could see Hendricks inside, already back to his clipboard, already forgetting the woman he'd just destroyed. People like Hendricks only understood one language. William had been speaking it fluently for 2 decades. 4 minutes and 30 seconds later, the first black SUV turned onto 9th Street. Then another. Then 3 more. Within moments, the quiet residential street looked like a presidential motorcade had taken a wrong turn. 7 vehicles, all black, all identical, all with tinted windows that reflected the streetlights like dark mirrors. They parked in formation, blocking both ends of the street, engines still running. Car doors opened in synchronized silence. Men in dark suits emerged, the kind of men who made civilians instinctively reach for their phones to call 911. Except no one was calling anyone, because the sight of that much coordinated power made people freeze and reassess every decision that had led them to this particular street corner. Dante stepped out of the lead vehicle, holding a phone and a charcoal suit jacket. He took one look at William and his expression shifted from relief to professional concern. You look like you ran through hell, Dante said quietly, handing over the items. Close enough. William shrugged into the jacket, feeling the familiar weight of authority settle back onto his shoulders. He took the phone and scrolled through the missed calls. 47. Every lieutenant in his organization is trying to find him. What's the play here, boss? Dante asked, glancing at the grocery store where faces were now pressed against the windows, staring at the sudden military presence outside. William checked his watch. The Patek Philippe caught the streetlight and gleamed. 7:43 p.m. The store closed at 10. The play, William said slowly, is teaching a lesson about respect. To who? William looked at the store, at the figure of Paul Hendricks visible through the window, still holding his clipboard like it gave him authority. To a man who thinks power comes from a name tag. He started walking toward the store entrance, his crew falling into formation behind him. 7 men in suits, moving with the kind of purpose that made the evening shoppers scatter like leaves in a storm. The automatic doors slid open. Paul Hendricks looked up from his clipboard and went pale. Paul Hendricks had worked retail management for 19 years, and he'd never seen anything like this. 7 men in suits walking through his store like they owned it, moving in formation, their presence sucking all the oxygen out of the building. The customers froze mid-shop. The stock boys stopped stocking. Even the music playing through the overhead speakers seemed to quiet down, like the universe itself was holding its breath. And leading them was the man from Register 4. The broke vagrant who couldn't afford a bottle of water. Except he didn't look broke anymore. He looked like a nightmare dressed in tailored wool. "Can I help you?" Hendricks managed, his voice cracking slightly. His hand instinctively went to the panic button under the counter, the one connected directly to the police station. "I wouldn't," one of the suited men said quietly, noticing the movement. William Ashford walked straight to the customer service counter where Hendricks stood, his dark eyes fixed on the manager like a predator selecting prey. He didn't blink, didn't smile, just stared until Hendricks felt his bladder threaten to betray him. "Do you know who I am?" William asked. Hendricks shook his head, not trusting his voice. "My name is William Ashford." He let that hang in the air for a moment. No recognition flickered in Hendricks' eyes, which somehow made it worse. "I run the East Side. Construction, shipping, real estate. Most of the buildings in this district have my fingerprints on them somewhere." I don't understand. "This building," William continued, pulling out his phone, "belongs to Riverside Properties LLC, a subsidiary of Ashford Holdings. It has for 6 years. He scrolled through something on his screen. "Your lease is managed through them. Your rent checks go to them. Your corporate overlords answer to them, which means they answer to me." Hendricks felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. "Sir, if this is about earlier." "It is about earlier." William's voice could have cut glass. "You fired a pregnant woman for an act of kindness. You humiliated her in front of your customers. You threatened to blacklist her across the district and accused her of theft. She violated store policy." "I don't give a damn about store policy." William took a step closer. The temperature in the store dropped. "You want to know what I care about? I care that a woman who could barely afford to feed herself gave me her last $20 when I needed help. And I care that you punished her for it while I stood there like some kind of beggar." One of William's men, the one Hendricks would later learn was named Dante, stepped forward and placed a manila folder on the counter. Fresh from the county clerk's office. Building deed, property records, lease agreements. All in order. William opened the folder and pulled out a document. "As of 20 minutes ago, I dissolved the management contract with Valdez Groceries corporate office. This building is now under direct ownership of Ashford Holdings, which means I can do whatever I want with it." He looked at Hendricks. "Starting with you." "Wait. You're fired," William said simply. "Effective immediately." The blood drained from Hendricks' face. "You can't just." "I can. I did." William raised his voice slightly, addressing the entire store. "Everyone else keeps their jobs. Same hours, same pay. Effective tomorrow morning, wages increase by 15% across the board. Health insurance premiums are now covered by the company, not the employees." One of the cashiers gasped. The stock boys looked at each other in disbelief. "But Mr. Hendricks here?" William turned back to the manager. "He's done. Not just here. Everywhere. By tomorrow morning, every property owner in this city will have his name on a list. Retail, food service, warehouses, construction. No one touches him. That's illegal." Hendricks sputtered. "I'll sue. Sue away." William's smile was the most terrifying thing Hendricks had ever seen. "I have lawyers who eat lawsuits for breakfast. And while we're in court, I'll make sure every reporter in this city knows about the manager who fired a pregnant woman for showing compassion. Let's see how that plays with your next job interview." Hendricks stood there, his clipboard hanging limply in his hand, his little kingdom crumbling around him. Get out of my building, William said quietly. And Paul Hendricks, for the first time in his petty, cruel life, had nothing left to say. William found Rachel sitting on a bench at the bus stop 2 blocks from the store, her face in her hands, shoulders shaking with quiet sobs she'd been holding in since she walked out. She didn't hear him approach. Didn't notice the black SUV idling at the curb or the man in the expensive suit standing in front of her until his shadow fell across her lap. Ms. William realized he didn't know her last name. Didn't know anything about her except that she'd saved him when she couldn't afford to save herself. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Rachel looked up, her eyes red and swollen. When she saw him, confusion flickered across her face. Then recognition. Then something close to fear. Behind him stood 2 of his men, their presence impossible to ignore. Rachel, she said quietly. Rachel Turner. Rachel. William sat down on the bench, leaving a respectful distance between them. His men stayed back, giving them space but close enough to intervene if needed. Old habits. I need to talk to you. If this is about the money, I don't want it back, she said quickly. You don't owe me anything. It was just water. It wasn't just water. William turned to face her fully. And you're right, I do owe you. More than you know. Rachel wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Who are you? Really? My name is William Ashford. I own properties across the city. Real estate, construction, shipping. He paused. Other things. The way he said other things made Rachel's stomach tighten. She wasn't stupid. Men with 7 bodyguards and the power to take over buildings in 20 minutes didn't make their money from legitimate businesses alone. The store manager, she said slowly. What did you do to him? I fired him. William's expression didn't change. And made sure he won't work in this district again. He humiliated you. Threatened you. That has consequences. You bought the building just to fire him? I already owned the building. I just took control of it. He studied her face, the exhaustion carved into every line. How far along are you? The question caught her off guard. What? The pregnancy. How far along? 4 months. Rachel's hand went instinctively to her stomach. Why does that matter? William didn't answer immediately. He was thinking about his mother, Maria, pregnant and alone in a city that chewed up people like her and spit out the bones. He was thinking about all the time she'd sacrificed her own meals so he could eat, all the time she'd worked double shifts while her ankles swelled and her back screamed. Where's the father? He asked. Gone. The word came out bitter. He didn't want to be a father, so he stopped being anything. Family. A sister in Atlanta. We don't talk much. Rachel looked at him, really looked at him, seeing past the expensive suit to something she couldn't quite name. Why are you asking me this? Because I need to understand something. William leaned forward, elbows on his knees. When you gave me that $20, did you know who I was? No. Did you think I could pay you back? No. Rachel shook her head. You looked like you'd lost everything. I thought you were homeless, maybe. Or running from something. I was running from something, William admitted. And I had lost everything temporarily. Every form of identification, every dollar, every piece of power I'd spent 20 years building. He met her eyes. At that moment, at that register, I wasn't a boss or a businessman or anything else. I was just a man who needed help. And you helped me anyway. That's just being human, Rachel said softly. No. William's voice was firm. That's extraordinary. Most people in that store looked at me and saw a problem to be solved or an inconvenience to be endured. You looked at me and saw a person. Rachel didn't know what to say to that. The job, William continued. You needed it. The insurance especially. Yeah. Rachel felt tears threatening again. I'm 4 months pregnant with no job, no insurance, and rent due in 3 days that I can't pay. So I'm basically homeless starting Friday. She laughed. A sound with no humor in it. Your $20 might be the last money I have until I figure something out. William pulled out his phone and made a call. Dante, I need you to handle something. Her former car. I don't understand, she said for the third time since Dante had picked her up that morning and driven her here. Why would he do this? Dante stood by the door, professional and patient. Mr. Ashford believes in taking care of people who take care of him. You helped him when he needed it. He's returning the favor. This isn't a favor, this is. Rachel gestured at the apartment, at the view, at everything. This is insane. I can't afford this. I can't afford any of this. You're not paying for it. Dante pulled out a folder from his briefcase. The lease is in your name, but the rent is handled through the Ashford Foundation. Utilities included. You'll also find a health insurance card in here. Effective immediately. Full coverage including prenatal and delivery. There's also a position available at the foundation, if you're interested. Administrative work, flexible hours, full benefits. Rachel took the folder with shaking hands. I can't just accept all this. I don't even know him. He knows enough. Dante's expression softened slightly. Mr. Ashford's mother raised him alone. Pregnant, no support, working herself to death in a city that didn't care if she lived or died. When he saw you at that register, he saw her. And he saw what would have happened if someone had helped her the way you helped him. So this is charity? This is justice. Dante corrected. You did something good and got punished for it. He's correcting that imbalance. Rachel walked to the window, looking out at the city that had chewed her up for 4 months straight. From up here it looked different. Smaller. Less threatening. What does he want in return? She asked quietly. Nothing. Dante was already heading for the door. Mr. Ashford doesn't make trades. He settles debts. You gave him something when he had nothing. This is him acknowledging that. Will I see him again? Dante paused in the doorway. That's up to you. If you take the foundation job, probably. If not, he won't bother you. He's not a man who forces his presence on people. After Dante left, Rachel stood alone in the apartment, one hand on her stomach, trying to process the fact that her life had completely changed in less than 48 hours. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The nursery furniture can be changed if you don't like it. Just let Dante know. W. She looked at the nursery again. The crib was white oak, simple and beautiful. The rocking chair sat by the window where morning light would pour through. There were books on a shelf, soft blankets folded on a dresser. Everything a baby would need. Everything she couldn't have given her child a week ago. Rachel typed back slowly. It's perfect. Thank you. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then reappeared. Finally, you're welcome. Get some rest. 24 hours after Paul Hendricks lost his job, his phone started ringing. First it was his wife, hysterical, saying their mortgage payment had been rejected because their bank account was frozen pending an IRS audit. Then it was his lawyer, explaining that 3 former employees had filed harassment complaints with the labor board, all dated within the past 6 months, all documented with witness statements and security footage he didn't know existed. Then the calls stopped coming altogether because every property management company, every retail chain, every warehouse operation in a 50-mile radius had received the same email. Paul Hendricks was unemployable. No explanation. No details. Just his name, his social security number, and a single line. Do not hire under any circumstances. By Thursday morning, Hendricks was sitting in his living room in his bathrobe, staring at his phone like it was a bomb, realizing that his entire career had been erased in less than 48 hours. He'd made the mistake of humiliating a man who could rewrite reality with a single phone call. Across town, Rachel Turner stood in the doorway of apartment 4C at the Riverside Towers and tried to convince herself this was actually happening. The apartment had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. Hardwood floors. A kitchen with appliances that looked like they belonged in a spaceship. 2 bedrooms, one of which was already furnished as a nursery with a crib, changing table, and a rocking chair that probably cost more than her car had. She did. For the first time in 4 months, Rachel Turner slept without nightmares. 3 years later, William Ashford sat in his office reviewing contracts for a housing development that would bring affordable units to the east side when he heard the commotion in the hallway. "Uncle William! Uncle William!" The door burst open and a small tornado in the form of a 3-year-old boy came charging through, his mother chasing after him with an exhausted but laughing expression. "Marcus, you can't just run into people's offices," Rachel said, scooping up her son before he could climb onto William's desk. "Even when it's Uncle William." William set down his pen and smiled, the kind of genuine smile that his associates still found unsettling because it meant the boss was actually happy. "It's fine. I was drowning in zoning ordinances. He's doing me a favor." Marcus Turner Ashford, named after no one in particular because Rachel had wanted him to write his own story, wiggled in his mother's arms until she set him down. He immediately toddled over to William and held up a piece of paper covered in crayon scribbles. "I drew you," Marcus announced proudly. William studied the drawing with the seriousness it deserved. A stick figure with what might have been a tie, standing next to a smaller stick figure in what was probably supposed to be a building but looked more like a rectangle with windows. "That's me and you in the foundation building," Marcus explained, pointing at each element. "Mommy says you make houses for people who need them." "I do," William confirmed, his chest tight with an emotion he still wasn't entirely comfortable with. "Your mommy helps me do that. She's very good at her job." Rachel had started as an administrative assistant at the Ashford Foundation 3 years ago, 2 weeks after moving into the Riverside apartment. Within 6 months, she'd reorganized their entire filing system, identified 3 separate grant opportunities they'd been missing, and created a program that connected low-income families with housing resources. Now she was the director of community outreach, running a department of 12 people and changing lives daily. She'd also convinced William to shift 40% of his business operations away from the gray areas and into legitimate development, the kind that built schools and community centers instead of washing money through shell corporations. "We should get going," Rachel said, checking her watch. "We have that site visit at the new project in an hour." "I want to come," Marcus declared. "Next time, buddy," William said, standing and offering the boy his hand for a very serious handshake. "Men of business need to handle their responsibilities." Marcus shook his hand with great solemnity, then ruined it by giggling. After they left, William stood at his office window looking out at the city he'd spent 2 decades conquering through fear and force. The Volkov brothers were gone, eliminated 6 months after the grocery store incident in a war that had been brutal and final. His territory was secure. His empire was vast. But none of it meant as much as the crayon drawing now pinned to his bulletin board. Dante knocked and entered without waiting for permission, a privilege earned through 15 years of loyalty. The housing project got final approval from the city. "We break ground next month." "Good." William didn't turn from the window. "Make sure we're hiring locally. I want families from the neighborhood working construction." "Already on it." Dante moved to stand beside him. "You know, when you took over that grocery store 3 years ago, I thought you'd lost your mind." "Maybe I did. Best thing that ever happened to you." Dante's voice was quiet. "You're still the same man. Still dangerous when you need to be. But you're building things now instead of just taking them." William thought about that night, standing at register 4 with empty pockets and wounded pride. He thought about a pregnant woman who'd given her last $20 to a stranger because it was the right thing to do, even when it cost her everything. "She saved my life," William said finally. "Not from the Volkovs. From myself." His phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "Marcus wants to know if Uncle William can come to his birthday party next week. No pressure, but he's already told everyone you're coming, so." William smiled and typed back, "I'll be there. What does he want for a present?" The response came immediately. "He wants you to teach him how to tie a tie like yours. Says he wants to be a businessman when he grows up." William looked at the crayon drawing again, at the stick figure child standing next to the stick figure man, both of them in front of a building that helped people. 20 years ago, William Ashford had built an empire on fear, violence, and the belief that power was the only currency that mattered. One act of kindness from a woman who had nothing had torn that empire down and rebuilt it into something worth leaving behind. He typed back, "Tell him we'll start with the wins or not. Every businessman needs to know Windsor." Outside his window, the city continued its endless rhythm. But somewhere in it, in an apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and a nursery filled with light, a little boy was learning that strength and kindness weren't opposites. They were the same thing, just measured differently. And William Ashford, the man who'd once ruled through fear, was finally learning what it meant to be someone's hero. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as I can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one. Please don't forget to subscribe.